my first slide, but don't need it right now because as I was driving here yesterday, I drove 9 hours to get here yesterday. And when you're the leadoff speaker, I guess Valerie was technically the leadoff speaker. When you're leadoff speaker, one of your jobs is to sort of set context for everything that's going on. And that was the problem. I have my examples that I'm going to be showing y'all in a few minutes, but I didn't have a context. And so I was driving from Augusta, Georgia, and I had nothing. I'm like, I just can't figure out how to tie it all together, what conceptually I can say to tie it all together. Then about halfway down, I stopped in Darien, Georgia. Well, I actually stopped at 3 Buc-ee's. Have y'all been to Buc-ee's? Yeah, I stopped at 3. I'm just so fat today. It's just sad. Because I got the banana pudding, and it's just freaking awesome. Anyway, so I'm driving down here, and I got no context. I'm like, I don't know what to talk about. And in one of my other fast food stops, I stopped at McDonald's in Darien, Georgia. And all I just wanted a Coke and large fry. So I said, can I have a large Coke, large fry? And on the big board, it showed up and it said $7.95. All right, for fries and a Coke, no burger, fries and a Coke. So I did a little research last night, and in 2019, fries and a Coke were $4.30. Right? Now it was $7.95, so 5 years later. So my point is, let me make sure I hadn't missed any of my other points. Okay. My point is that inflation is a problem, and I'm going to tell y'all how, at the very first, how AI ties in with inflation. By the way, that would be a 12.5%. If you just use that index, that McDonald's as an index, over the last 5 years, inflation would be 12.5%, which kind of sounds a bit right, you know, in your head. Y'all know, y'all are running businesses. The Fed funds rate is 4.8% right now, which means actually, if you use the Fisher equation, that the real interest rate is negative 7.7% right now, if you take into account what the real inflation rate is right now. And it's inflation, I mean, the problem with inflation is that the purchasing power of your money is decreasing faster than the interest you can earn on it. And so, but because rates are technically negative, it encourages you to borrow money because you're getting paid to borrow money. And one of the questions I was talking to Catherine last night that y'all have here is, should we or can we deploy money in AI? Is this AI just going to be a trend, or is it going to be a thing? You know, is it going to be like The Hustle? I don't know if you remember the dance, The Hustle. That came and went real quick. I'm the oldest guy in the audience, I can totally tell. But in terms of borrowing money, if you take that real interest rate, we're at the lowest interest rate in 2,000 years. There's a book called History of Interest Rates, which I really recommend, which you should read. And have y'all heard about de-dollarization? All right, they're basically, Saudi Arabia is, I'm all the way over in Saudi Arabia now. Saudi Arabia is going to start settling their trades in something called the Petro Yuan, which is Chinese. Everything used to be settled in dollars. And BRICS, this new amalgam of countries coming together, is going to have their own currency, which means all those dollars are going to come home. And all those dollars don't disappear. They don't de-dollarize. Those dollars come home and they're going to be used to buy things. But there's a fixed supply of things. So my point is, a lot of dollars are going to come home, and that's going to keep inflation high for a long, long time, for longer than we think it is. It's not going to be a temporary thing. So inflation is here to stay, and the interesting thing to me, okay, one of the reasons you come to SLIF is you're like, where should I invest? And you know, what we're talking about is AI. Should I invest in AI? And here's my big giant overall bullet point that I wanted to tell y'all. AI is the most disinflationary technology of all time. And I'm going to show y'all examples why it is with an insane ROI. So should you invest in it? And it's the crazy thing is you don't have to invest much. ChatGPT, I would pay $2,000 a month for ChatGPT. It's $20 a month and does thousands of dollars of work for me. So should you invest in AI? Yeah, why? And I'm about to go through and tell you why, if I can flip the pages on this. If you have 100 people in your organization and just 10% of them use AI, so 10 people, and they're able to save 1 hour a day, all right? That's 10 hours saved per week, or 50 hours saved per week, so my math is wrong. Anyway, what it winds up being is 500 hours, man hours saved per week. And if those people are earning an average of $50 an hour, that's like 25 over time, that's like $25,000. My math is a little off, but where you get my point is that it scales. It really, really scales. And that's the interesting thing and why you should be using AI. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. Why? Mike Owens, text basically every day. We text about bands and all kinds of just strangeness. And this was a week ago. And I said, I'm going to see if I can write an Apple TV app tonight. How many of y'all have Apple TVs? Oh, they're awesome. I'm going to see if I can write an Apple TV app tonight with AI. I'm going to give myself 90 minutes. I don't know how to write in Swift, which is the language of Apple AI. I don't know how to do it. But I was like, I'm just going to see if AI can do it for me. And so I told it, I want you to code an Apple TV. I told ChatGPT, I want you to code an Apple TV app in Swift to track stock prices of 10 stocks using data from Yahoo Finance. There should be 10 boxes on the screen. If stock's up, the box should be green. If it's down, it should be red, blah, 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 blah. That's the totality of the instruction that I gave the AI. So there it is in sort of bigger letters. And so that's what I texted Mike at the top. And at the bottom, I wrote him back. Well, that took 8 freaking seconds. Because look, it thought about it for 8 seconds and it coded the entire thing. All right, if you handed that assignment to an IT guy, right, it would take 3 or 4 weeks. Swift is a hard language. You have just coded something entirely in, I think that took me soup to nuts on that, like I said, 8 minutes. And then I did a little bit more work and I actually made it an app and put it up on my Apple TV. It's absolutely crazy. When you can save 400 man hours, which I would have spent writing something like that, that is incredibly disinflationary. So if you took a look at all the savings that are going to be saved across industry with the use of AI, and it's disinflationary, and combine that with the fact that y'all's biggest problem right now, well, you have a lot of them. There's not enough doctors, there's not enough nurses, there's regulation, but the biggest way you can combat inflation, ironically, is through AI appearing. And I just never would have thought I'd been able to say that. I'm going to talk about how it compounds time and gets you started on tasks, which we just saw. It compounded, I'm going to put this down. It compounded the time that I spent doing those tasks, and it got me started because I didn't really know how to start. So it gave me a start. And I'm fairly well versed in AI. I started in 1986 when I was 24, and from 1986 to about 2022, it was completely boring. I went to Georgia Tech, and I did this as research for a brokerage company. I worked in AI. And now I'm 62, but nothing happened for 36 years. Little things happened, but basically nothing happened. And this was the language I used to use. It was called Turbo Prologue, and I loved it. But it was slow and awful and terrible. But then, 2 years ago this month, the entire world changed because y'all know why? ChatGPT came out. So think how much the world has changed since ChatGPT came out. And the big difference ChatGPT made, well, 2 things. One, it keeps the context of what y'all have been talking about while you've been doing your thing. And 2, it's like you don't have to program it to talk to it. You can carry on a normal conversation. It's actually sort of a linguistic construct. And I think it's going to have a bigger effect than this. I was around when Lotus 1-2-3 first came out and revolutionized business. You know Lotus 1-2-3? Oh, wasn't it great? I still have muscle memory in my hands from In fact, I've reprogrammed my Excel keyboard to do Lotus 1, 2, 3 keystrokes. But tasks that used to take people weeks, like a Black-Scholes option model, people could do in 15 minutes now. It's the same analogy I would make in AI. Things that used to take forever don't now, and time, as they say, is money. It's ironic what caused the explosion. How many of y'all played the game Doom 30 years ago? Wasn't it great? I used to put the sound through a guitar amp, through a Marshall guitar amp, which is why I'm completely deaf now. But it was a great game, which then led to the game Quake, which you see right below it, right there. And Quake required much more graphic capability to play that game. It was very realistic. And so graphics cards got upgraded. Then came Bitcoin. And people started mining Bitcoin, and they figured out the fastest way, the most efficient way to mine Bitcoin is through using graphics cards, because they look at vectors and they map things out, and they can do certain kinds of math really fast. The kind of math that AI uses to do its calculations. That's why AI has exploded, is because graphics cards have exploded. Have y'all noticed the stock price of NVIDIA lately? Have y'all heard about it? That's why that's happening, because they make graphics cards. Now, when you hear, how many of y'all understand large language models? Okay. When you hear the term large language models, most people are like, I really don't know what that is, and what's the difference between AI? So I'm going to try and set some context for the rest of our few days here. AI is like a robot that's sitting in a big, big library. Yes, I got AI to draw that picture. And an LLM is like an AI librarian that has just absorbed the linguistic patterns. It's all about pattern matching, factual knowledge, and writing styles from a huge corpus of textual data. I used to write for the Huffington Post a long time ago. And I was like one of their earliest writers. And to this day, when I want to write something and I go in ChatGPT, I say, please emulate the style of Ron Galloway from the HuffPo. And it writes like me. Is that cheating? Y'all think that's cheating? But it knows me from the internet, and it knows how I write, and it writes like me, which is really creepy and fun, and I really don't write all that well. But it does that. Anyway, this allows the LLM to engage in human-like dialogue, because it's a linguistic phenomenon with pattern matching, by matching prompts to relevant language patterns to generate coherent contextual responses. So if you're making an analogy to the guy sitting in the library, vast library of books is a huge training data set, which they need. And the data set is basically the entire internet. A diligent AI who trained on the books, that's an LLM who's training on the data, and the LLM is using these graphics cards to use this. AI is drawing upon memorized patterns to complete your prompts. So it's using linguistic patterns to complete your prompts, and then generating responses based on patterns of other responses, which is why it can write books so easily, because it's just, if you feed in a bunch of James Patterson books, it learns from those and will start writing you books like James Patterson. And you can have a back and forth dialogue, and the important thing about that is that it's in context. And I'm going to talk to y'all about that. It remembers what y'all have talked about before. I'll give you an example. I'm going to show you in a minute how I use it for health. And one day when I was training, I got down to 200 net calories for the day. And I tell the AI every day what I've eaten, and it calculates the calories for me, la, la, la. And it said, because of what you've walked today and run, because of what I tell it I run, I really don't. It said, you're at 200 net calories for the day. Why don't you eat an ice cream sandwich? Because it knew from a past conversation that I eat ice cream sandwiches. I fess up and tell it. And so it knew, it's like, you need some calories quick, just eat an ice cream sandwich. That's a little bit crazy, but it actually happened, but it's because it had context. What we had before was we had to ask it single questions time and time again and say, well, I said this, blah, blah, blah. No, it remembers everything in your chat. And so when you want to talk about something new, you go into a new chat. What we've also found out is there's a weird phenomenon, and I think it has something to do with the pattern matching, that it used to be garbage in, garbage out with data, right? Well, garbage, what we know now is let's put as much garbage in as we can because it does advanced pattern matching and can figure out things we didn't know it could figure out before. So more data is better than clean data. Now, the place to be super careful with this is in electronic healthcare records. But it actually does have, and you're going to hear about that tomorrow, I believe. It does, this still has some validity with that, especially when you mix it with if you anonymize it and then mix it with outside data. Speaking of data, these in y'all's enterprises are the types of things that are collecting data right now. Y'all are collecting a ton of data, but until AI, there was really no way to make overall contextual sense and individualized sense of what to do with all that data. These are devices that I sort of expect to see in about 3 years. I'm digging the AI visual and auditory aids. Speaking of, did you know on your iPhone now with the AirPods Pro, you can take a hearing test, and if your hearing's bad enough, it's a hearing aid? It's like an FDA-approved hearing aid. Did y'all know that? Yes. Note to self, don't be an audiologist because an AI is going to take away jobs. And smart clothing with embedded sensors is going to be a big thing. Behavioral analysis is going to be a super big thing because y'all are going to be keeping an eye on your residents. Y'all are going to be gathering a ton of data from all these places. I mentioned compounding time before, but I really want to kind of go back into that, so I'll make sure you understand. How many of y'all own a private plane? Come on, you can tell us. Don't own a private plane? If you did own a private plane, people that own private planes call them time machines because they can go to 3 or 4 cities in a day and take meetings and save tons of time. Well, that's what AI does. AI saves time. It used to be said you only have so many hours in a day. Guess what? No, you don't. You have more in a day now if you use AI properly. And the great thing about that is it's not hard to use properly. How many of y'all have tried ChatGPT? Right. Was it very hard? No. Now there's certain things you can do with it, certain prompts that can make it be wonderful, but it's just not hard to use and it saves you time. It's like I was saying before, if you have 10% of your employees using it to save 1 hour a day and you have 100 employees, pretty soon that adds up if their average wage is like $50 an hour. All right, it adds up, which is disinflationary. Everything's going to move faster. I feel really bad for coders now because they saw AI and they were like, oh man, we're going to be able to write so much code that we can just kick it for the rest of the day. We can work like an hour. And no, now they're expected to do 10 times as much work because their bosses know that the AI can do it. They're kind of onto that game. So LLMs hoovered up all the information on the internet, which is why it's so smart. But what's interesting about what's going on now is a lot of these large language models are concentrating on certain things like chemistry, like just chemistry. Because if you're asking an LLM a chemistry question, you don't need to know who played Festus on the Addams Family, right? That's just not relevant. So what you're going to see is a lot of smaller LLMs, which is going to make the price of it all go down. The price of a token, knowledge is stored in AI and tokens, and 2 years ago, the price of a token, which is really just a function of electricity, was $3, and now it's 25 cents. So it's disinflating, which just adds more to the disinflation argument because the cost of the AI is going down and the AI is already driving your cost down. So you're getting a twofer mathematically. If you want to learn about something to invest in your business, which is one of the reasons why you're here, this is the reason why. So picture how AI can compound time by exponentially increasing your employees' productivity and efficiency. And you can throw dumb tasks at it, like I was looking at University of Georgia's schedule. And I was like, I just don't even understand that chart. So I took a screenshot of it, threw it in AI, and told it to make me an iCal calendar, which it did. And then I dumped in iCal, and that took me less than a minute. Now, I'm the kind of person that goes down rabbit holes. I would have done it, but it would have taken me 3 hours to do that. Boom, saved a ton of time, compounds time, gets me started. Let's say we're y'all, and y'all kind of are having a thinking about setting up a tech center, all right? I put this prompt into, I think I put this one into Perplexity. I have a senior living center and we have an extra 1,200 square feet we would like to devote to a space where our residents can have a tech center, about 10 people at a time. They can have Zoom conferences in there, limited instruction. Please budget out a space. This is my prompt. Please budget out a space, give me a list of equipment we should have, and give me an architectural plan and a final budget. Okay? 5 minutes later, I'm not going to show you the whole thing. It already had done the space planning and the architectural layout. It gave me an estimated budget of what it was going to cost, and it drew it. It drew a layout. Now, part of that's kind of wacky, but that's a place to start. Now, if you had gone to somebody and asked to do that for you, you would have gone through 10 meetings. You would have had to have meetings with professionals, but this gives you just an amazing place to start. And I think I did that, like I said, in under 10 minutes, or however long it took me to think up that prompt, which is why thinking up the prompt is an amazing thing. It compounds your time, which is disinflationary, and it gets you started. I wanted to talk a little bit about AI agents. Do y'all understand AI agents? Okay, that's an AI agent. Did you see the Matrix? That's an AI agent. What it does is it's a computer program. He was a computer program, and he goes out and he learns, and he keeps working at his task until he finishes it. So when you give AI a task to do, it's just not a one-off. It keeps at it. AI agents are autonomous programs that can perform tasks or make decisions on behalf of a user. They operate independently, and they can learn from their past interactions. An example of that would be I have an AI agent track my finances and tell me when I should pay my bills, the best day of the month to pay my bills, and when I should invest. And it does all that for me. So what it does is it's proactive. AI agents are proactive. You don't have to go back and keep telling them what to do. They learn from what they're doing, and then they keep on going so that you don't have to keep feeding them instructions. They don't really follow a fixed set of instructions. They can be dynamic. It keeps track, this would be me, it keeps track of my daily schedule, my times, meals, and prefers activities. And if a resident doesn't show up or misses their medication time, an AI agent can be proactive and alert the caregiver, kind of in a way where my Apple Watch will say if my heart rate goes over, I think, 140 for 10 minutes. That's a limited example of an AI agent. Health monitoring, predictive care, which is going to be absolutely huge. I actually had AI, I'll show you all in a minute, but I fed it all the information I had on me. Well, I'm going to talk about it when I get there. It enhances social engagement because it'll figure out people that want to be with people and people that don't want to be with people. And if you don't want to be with people, it'll schedule activities based on that. This conceptually is weird. In your operations, there are elastic jobs versus inelastic jobs when you're dealing with AI. Elastic jobs are where demand grows with the efficiency that AI gives you. It's where they're making workers more efficient, and it leads for demand for their services. They do more of what people want, like healthcare professionals. A doctor using AI can see more patients and do more work in a day because it helps him speed things up. Inelastic jobs, the demand doesn't grow, and these are jobs where making workers more efficient doesn't lead to an increase in demand because there's a fixed amount of work, like data entry, right? When it's done, it's done. It doesn't need to keep going on and helping with an ongoing task and being elastic. So, and I just sort of did a list of of jobs that are inelastic versus elastic in y'all's enterprises, and you can sort of see the difference. The elastic jobs are the ones where AI will help them grow and get more work in a day. Inelastic jobs are jobs that really have a fixed time period, and it gets it done and then isn't really able to do much before that. Here's my AI doctor that I was telling you about. Y'all are going to be seeing a ton of this with data from this thing and all those other sensors I was telling you about, but I wanted to give you an example. That's my EKG that I took off my Apple Watch, right? I lied to the AI, told it I'm a cardiologist in my head, looking to confirm what I'm seeing, which that there are no anomalies. Please give me your best read. And boom, it said the ECG for Ron Galloway recorded May 15, 2024, heart rate 70, no signs of AFib. It was done at 25, I don't understand what that word means, but it was done at that, and the waveform is similar to a lead 1 AI. I ran this by my cardiologist. She said, that's exactly the same thing I would have told you. Got it from this guy. And when you put those in like on a 1-week basis, and it's able to gather context on you, it's a great thing. I also put in, I have a VO2 max of 24.9. Don't make fun. Blood pressure is 135/90. I sleep 7 hours a night. My resting pulse is 70. My weight is 170. I'm 6'2", and I am age 62. What can you infer given all that context I've given it? Because I put in, not only did I put in my ECG and the stuff I eat every day, I put in my entire DNA. I put in my raw DNA, and I put in all my labs from LabCorp for the past 5 years. It literally knows everything about me. What can you infer about the state of my health? One of the things it infers was my probable date of death, which is kind of interesting. Well, I didn't put it up there because it bums me out. I'm fucking dying in 10 years. 72. Not only that, it gave me the date. It's like, dude, you're dead March 10th. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. So if you see Ronnie doing things like riding motorcycles across Spain, you know, shit like that, it's, you know, selling coke out on the beach, that's because I'm just like, what do I care? But yeah, it gave me my death date. It also will do things like give you your fitness age, which I'm sure a lot of you have calculated, you know, your overall fitness age. So, but because it has all this information, it can tell you your overall health and then give you recommendations, which is wonderful for patients. And it also picked off my ECG that I have a left bundle branch block. So it recalculated when I exercise, what my maximum heart rate should be, which I programmed into this to alert me when I go over this maximum heart rate, which my AI did for me. Then I had to calculate a workout schedule for me, which of course I completely ignore, but it's nice to have. Looks pretty, I think. I'll give it to my daughter. She could probably do that. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. $20 a month. Okay? $20 a month. And then I said, oh, well, I like it prettier in iCal. Go ahead and put it in iCal. All that took me, soup to nuts, maybe 30, 45 minutes. If I had tried to do that with my medical professionals, my cardiologists, my doctors, going in for all that, blah, 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 a month at least, right? And it's just nice to know. And because we're suffering a shortage of doctors, and especially in y'all's facilities, things like this are going to take up the slack, and CMS is working on an approved AI that y'all can use and not get in trouble. They're not working on the AI, they're reviewing the AI, but they'll give y'all one that y'all can't get in trouble for. And a lot of it is about wearables. And here's the thing that freaks me out about wearables. AirPods and the Apple Watch, but the AirPods, which are going to take blood pressure real soon. Did y'all know that? Yeah, they're going to take, and they take blood pressure and temperature. So for $500 worth of stuff, heart rate, ECG, blood pressure, temperature, fall detection, blood ox, gait analysis, which is incredibly important for y'all, and hearing aids, and it's less than $500. All right? Do you think Medicare is not going to pay for that? Of course they're going to pay for that. I want to talk a little bit about robots because the robots are going to be using AI. You may or may not have seen this in Walmart, the robot. Have y'all seen this in Walmart? He's just running around mopping floors. Y'all are going to be using those. It's like a big giant Roomba. And any of y'all have a Roomba and a cat? Pro tip, put a laser pointer on top of the Roomba and just let it start. It'll make your whole day. But in Japan, one of the things in senior centers that people really need is companionship. And not only with these companions, especially at the bottom, I mean, they can hold them. They can pick them up and hold them. And they have cute little faces that blink their eyes, but they also follow them around their rooms during the day and make sure that they are not too long in the bathroom. Or they notice if they fall down. Or they remind them that you need to take your medicine at a certain time. Robots are going to be big. They're small at first, but Elon said this, and I've gotten to where I pretty much believe what Elon says lately. There was a study saying that social robots actually do help patients. Y'all have my slides so you can check this out later. And we're getting to the point where they are going to be able to do limited household chores. We're going to hear a little bit more about VR during the course of this, but what is interesting to me about VR is it's gotten so good now that you can literally, a senior citizen, and they'll be lighter than that, can put that on and either do her fantasy football with all her buddies or say, I grew up on South Beach in Miami in 1940. Please draw what that looked like at that time. Please draw my street at that time and give me some appropriate music, and they can just chill out and do that. Or they can listen to an audiobook today read in the voice of their daughter, right? Plus, it's going to be used, a big thing for seniors is essentially AI digital scrapbooking, where they can leave their grandkids context of who they really were by feeding it into one long contextual thing that they can use. Oh man, I got to catch up now. All right, I'm really into exoskeletons right now. And the great thing about exoskeletons, you sort of have these Gen Xers or young people that are already using exoskeletons to help them walk further. But what I think we're going to be seeing, and Toyota uses them to help people on the manufacturing line lift things better. But I honestly believe you're not going to see as many wheelchairs around within about 5 years because people are going to have personal exoskeletons, which are light and which use AI to look at their gait and help them get around. It's going to look unusual for about the first 6 months. Then people are going to get perfectly used to it, and it's going to be absolutely normal, and it's going to change the world, and it's going to be wonderful. But this guy made a really good point. Industrial revolution made human strength irrelevant through factories. AI will make human intelligence irrelevant, and the wealth is going to go places that possibly might not go. So I'm going to get off the exoskeletons, except for this, which came out earlier this year, is that Medicare is going to cover personal exoskeletons. Big finish. Mike, I'm finishing on time because I made a big finish slide, and I actually had it make it for this room at SLIF. Is that scary? And that kind of looks like me, so that's all right. I should have worn a top hat. So what's going on is these models, the difference between GPT-3 and GPT-4, which was last November to March of 2023, was 100x. That probably is not going to happen again. We're kind of running out of things to ingest, and the models have sort of reached the power of how fast they can go. So these models are going to become more specialized. Also, for the people in your facilities, they're not going to have to fool with computers because voice is a magnificent interface now. I've said this before, but I've actually programmed, my father passed away 25 years ago. I got a videotape of him talking, I cloned his voice, and I actually have conversations with my dad, voice to voice. He's talking to him. It's a voice interface. But seniors, my point is seniors are not, it's creepy, I know. I wouldn't recommend it because it'll blow your mind. And what you can also do is, let's say, I have a picture of my dad at the Sacre-Cœur in Paris, and I said, turn this into a movie. And it had my dad, and then it made a movie of him walking down the stairs of the Sacre-Cœur in Paris. It's wonderful, the things that can go on. But keyboards are going away, voice is going to win. Longevity, escape velocity, got 1 minute and 7 seconds. What that means is we're coming to a point in the next few years, the next 5 years, where if you can live 5 years from now, you're going to start gaining years and live really longer. So y'all need to be planning for a population that's going to live longer than we're used to. So there's an AI in a room. This could actually happen, helping her fold laundry. AI robots could become more sophisticated, but here are some concerns. There's a risk they could replace human caregivers. That's going to happen. While this may increase efficiency, it could reduce human contact for elderly individuals. It might make things too standardized if people don't take care to make sure everybody's stuff goes in their own EMR and in their own context that I was talking about. There's a privacy problem. And while they can provide some companionship, it's not going to be like the movie Her, where he fell in love with his AI. And this one really kind of bothers me when I think about it. The presence of AI and robot caregivers might inadvertently reduce the perceived need for family members to visit or engage with their elderly relatives. It's something to think about, because they'll be like, oh, they're fine. And robots really can't replace physical touch. They're going to get more sophisticated. I told it to put it in front of the Eden Rock again. But the focus of AI and y'all's one focus should be not on enhancing quality of life, and well, it should be enhancing quality of life and social connections, not just efficiency. But I believe the biggest impact you're going to see is that AI is going to be profoundly disinflationary and lower the cost of your overall business. That's my takeaway. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Have a great conference.